I haven't had a panic attack, a drug, a bout of anxiety in 5 years.
Why? How?
5-second rule. I haven't even told you like the whole story of this.
Y'all need to go buy this book immediately.
Listen to me. So the thing about growth, and do we all have dreams? The way your body's wired is to signal you when fundamental needs aren't being met. So what do you feel in your body if you need water?
Thirsty.
And what do you feel in your body if you need food?
Hungry.
Yeah, and what do you feel if you need connection?
Horny.
Yeah, totally.
That's a bad word. Remember?
I'll tell you what you feel if you're not growing.
It's dated.
You feel stuck.
Yeah.
That is a signal from your body that you're no longer growing.
Shit.
Isn't that
Mel?
cool?
Yes, and I know so many people.
That's it.
We don't have time to. We don't. If we're stuck, we jump. It's so. And I think that what you're telling people is to listen. And we've been trying to tell people these words, but that's why Mel is here, not us, because if you do it, it's very hard to know how we do it.
This is why there's a disconnect between somebody coming to you and saying, my spouse left me, I'm a single parent, I work a shift job, I'm full of anxiety and I'm stuck, and somebody going, have you tried a painting class? You're like, what in the fuck are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
I'm worried about paying groceries. The reason why a lot of the advice feels like you don't even comprehend what I'm going through is because you haven't connected the dots for why this stuff is important. Taking a bath every night and having a tiny self-care ritual that brings you presence, which is one of mine too, super important.
Cat thinks it's gross that I bathe myself.
Yeah, I do too.
It's lovely.
I do too. It's super important because you're stopping the hamster wheel, and you're taking a moment. What you're actually doing is you're stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, which ties into anxiety. And that's super important. Taking a painting class is
I also
important.
feel like for me, the bath and how it ends my day is that even for when I had my babies and I wanted them to go to sleep, I always ended with the warm water and the relaxation to put them into that new space for sleep. So I feel like I'm kind of a baby in that way, but I need to do it to get to the rest.
Yeah. And we do it with drinking, 5 o'clock, I'm moving from work mode or take care of kid mode into relax mode.
Yeah.
So the other reason why I say take a class is because if you feel stuck, you've stopped learning. And so
going.
just getting and taking a class, it doesn't matter if it's around flower arranging or if it's around online business.
Or like a free running club at the W. Like even though you've never done it, go join a club. Even if you hate it, go try it.
Go volunteer in a community project. Doing something like that makes you feel like you're growing. You immediately stop feeling so stuck.
And I feel like what we're so lucky in our job that we have somehow created, and I'm sure you too, is we get to meet people we would otherwise never talk to and hear their stories, which expands our mind and makes us feel like we're growing from meeting people. Because if we weren't doing what we were doing and traveling and get to meet people, we'd be at home talking to each other with our kids.
Drop off, pick up, Groundhog Day, right?
There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
if you enjoy it.
Not for us.
I have to, like, you're blowing my mind all kinds, and I know a lot of people at home feel like...
You feel like that emoji right now that's like the head is popping up?
I feel like, okay, I'm going to say this. A lot of people have empty empowerment, and it's something that...
What's empty empowerment?
So a 25-year-old we spoke with who was an MMA fighter, and she now does this course called Girls Who Fight, and she was not good at anything, and she basically has brain damage that is not reversed from fighting, and she had to do something.
She should go talk to Dr. Hyman, which is who I just came from.
Okay.
Who's the world's leading expert on this, and you can actually repair a damaged brain.
I'm going to tell her, and she was so wise and so raw and not spoken in anything other than being in a world of fighting as a girl and having to create this. And she's like, I go to all these girl conferences trying to understand it, and she's like, it's like empty empowerment. They're all like, go girl,
you're good, you can do this.
And she's like,
they don't teach them how.
No one's teaching them that you need to get uncomfortable and you need to do things that are so hard. So she created a fight. It's called Girls Who Fight, and the girls go and fight and get uncomfortable and understand their body limitations and how strong they are. And she's like, I get nervous of all this empty empowerment. We're shoveling.
There's a lot of horse shit on the internet. That's for sure.
And so you saying
and people that are really young trying to counsel people.
I know. That's scary. Who have
without any life experience.
No life experience.
But hold on a second. So let me just get to the really important thing, because what ended up happening is I ended up writing the book.
Yes.
Came out in 2017. And what's happened is it's now in 32 countries, sold, millions of
All
copies,
translated
whatever.
in all
Yeah, all
languages.
different translated in all different languages. But the bigger thing is that when I was, and then of course the speaking career took off. 47 the first year, 80 something the next year, 111 the next year. And I started to notice, because before I go on stage, I have one thing that I say to myself. There is one person in that audience that is not going to commit suicide because of what I say.
It's mind blowing.
And I don't care if there's 27,000 people in that audience or there is 27. That there is one person whose ass is supposed to be in that chair. Because everything that I talk about is changing the mental patterns that are broken.
Right. You're giving them tangible
And
tools
those
they
people
can
are
take
there
home.
because they need tools.
And so what happened is I started to notice that the book lines were where all of the most amazing conversations were happening. So just 2 years ago, I had 2,000 Instagram followers. I just had somebody start to film everything and put it online.
Yeah.
And the success of the 5-second rule had Audible approach us, so we have done 3 Audible originals for them that we've released in the last 18 months. I'm really proud of one that if you are working, you should check out Work It Out, because it's all about the rules that women need to know in work. Because there's only one behavior change that translates to getting paid more.
What's that?
Visibility.
I was like, asking for it?
Visibility.
That's what I thought
You
too.
only get paid for the things people know about, and most women are lousy at marketing their work.
I
They
think
just do
they've
so
been
many
taught
things.
to be quiet.
Correct.
They've been taught.
And
that
then
it's
there
not
was a huge book that we did called Take Control that's all about how, and this gets into the patterns from childhood. If you have experienced trauma, so if you're a survivor of any kind of sexual abuse, if you're the victim of a crime, if you've been deployed, if you were in a household where your parents fought or you had an alcoholic for a parent, you likely have trauma that is stored in your nervous system. And what happens is you're not aware of the fact that 35 years later, that when your boss comes barreling down the hallway and you immediately cower and you wonder what the fuck, it's your trauma response. And starting to identify those triggers and training your body and your mind to have a different reaction changes your entire fucking life. And so for me with anxiety, I had anxiety as long as I can remember. I got medicated at the age of 21 because I was having debilitating panic attacks. I took Zoloft for 2 decades. It saved my ass. The only time I came off it was when our 21-year-old was born, and I had such severe postpartum depression, like the scary ass kind, where I had to have somebody with me at all times because I could not be trusted to be alone.
Right.
And so when I talk about the mental patterns and the way we torture ourselves, I've lived this nightmare. But what happened when the 5-second rule got published and the TED Talk started exploding and our content started going everywhere is we reached over 2 million people a day. And the stories that come in are mind-blowing. I didn't jump off a bridge. We know of at least 100 people who have not committed or died by suicide because they've used 5-4-3-2-1 to stop themselves and ask for help. We have veterans organizations using it to help vets with other modalities to reprogram the response to...
It's how I get my kids into bed, just so you know.
Really?
I don't count up. I count down. I go 5, make a better decision. 5, 4, 3, 2, and it just...
Well, go up, it won't work.
Just anything. I'm like, no, just I'm letting you know this is 5 seconds for you to change your behavior at this moment. 5, 4, 3, 2, and then by 1 they're fucking running up the stairs.
Well,
not
it's
because I
a
threaten them.
positive cue. So
Positive
they're
cue.
positive and negative cues when it comes to habits. And so what happened is pediatricians are now using this, and therapists. We had a woman come to the talk show and say that she's a psychiatric inpatient nurse in Pennsylvania, and they play our videos for people inpatient. And the one thing that people seem to remember is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 when they're discharged.
I love it so
We
much.
have we didn't realize, like, our Mom Truth book and our videos, but we get prescribed to new moms to
That's
follow
incredible.
us because, and that's exactly
Ooh.
what my
Oh my
doctor.
God.
This is
Oh, we are? Okay.
Oh.
Give me, can I have 10 minutes?
yes,
I know
yes.
I'm
No,
being
there's no
slightly-
rush. This is just cocktails, but I know you guys have
Okay.
to go.
But we didn't realize, but when I had my first baby and I was having a really hard time, my doctor prescribed to me and said, I need you, and she wrote down the address of the closest mom group and said, I need you to go there. And I was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to even leave the house with my baby. I don't want to do this. But there wasn't social media. There wasn't all this stuff. So now a lot of doctors say, go follow Cat Nat. They'll show you a little bit of happiness in this dark time.
Amazing.
You know? So
Amazing.
it's so good. But
So here's how you use it. So for everybody who's now like, how do I use it? How do I
Okay,
use it?
let's
Because
do
I know
this.
we're like coming to the end.
We could be here all night, but anyways, I know
free,
you have to go. It's free.
Which is amazing. You need to understand that, first of all, whatever the thoughts are, if they're not helping you, they're harming you.
yes.
So you don't have to think them. So when a negative thought comes into your mind, just start counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you are telling your mind, I'm not going to think this. Now, if you chronically think negative things, I want you to go through your day and write down all the negative things that you say to yourself. That's number one. And then number 2 is come up with something else
Alternative.
so that you have it ready to go.
Change the channel.
At 0, you're ready to go. My
Yes.
new positive thing.
And the reason why change the channel is something that a lot of pediatricians say, which is why you want to have your go-to thought ready to go. I'll give you one quick example. I used to be terrified of flying. And so the way that you use this is, my negative thought is, I'm going to fucking die. This plane's going to crash. And so what you do is you use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, whenever that thought comes up. Before you get on the plane, come up with what I call an anchor thought. It's a thought that anchors you down in something positive.
Yes.
Okay? So on a plane, I always think about where am I going and what's the first meal I'm going to have.
Oh, love, that is right up our alley.
Right?
What are we having for lunch?
Right? And so
I like that.
you're on the plane, turbulence hits, your mind goes, oh fuck, I'm going to die. Go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm not thinking about it. And you're like, I am so excited to have that burger at that hotel when I get there, and something crazy will happen. You will have literally interrupted your thoughts, and you will have settled your body,
Yes.
and you'll be back in control.
That's what we have to do to our children before bed when they start saying negative things, and then we take them to a happy place and go
We
go
do
back to
the
this place.
5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear,
Oh, I love
2
that.
things that
Yeah.
you can smell, and then I do 1 thing you're grateful for. So what
That's
are you
awesome.
ground yourself in gratefulness, because that will often change the dialogue. And I think for people who have anxiety with your children, I don't know if you can attest to this, but so many people go to anxiety, and then I remember being told excitement and nervousness and anxiety are the same
That's
feeling. So now we are telling people that when they feel excited, you're anxious, which is no, because excitement can be a beautiful, wonderful, exciting
So here's
thing.
what you need to know. That comes from a Harvard Medical School study.
Is it
It's only-
true?
It's only 18 months old. It comes from a Harvard Medical School study.
Okay.
It's called Reframing Performance Anxiety. This is all the stuff that I am putting out
Because
to work.
it's excitement, we don't want to be nothing. We want to be happy. And your birthday's tomorrow.
works.
My
It
daughter's
works.
like, I'm anxious. I'm like, fuck, you're excited. Stop. This is good. You should be excited.
And here's the number one mistake we moms make, and then I gotta hop.
Yeah, we know. Okay, shit, we're gonna steal you.
No, that's okay. You have to stop rescuing them.
Yeah.
because
Yes.
It makes the anxiety worse.
Yeah,
Agreed.
No,
This
because
is
then
science.
they can't figure it out
This
if you're
is
not
not
there.
3 moms.
No.
Yes, you
Yes.
have to say, I get it. Let's come up with an anchor thought. Let's practice switching your mind. Let's practice like saying we're excited. And I promise you're not going to go through it alone.
We explain the 5-second rule for us.
Yes, real quick. It's super simple. It's going to sound kind of stupid. You can use it immediately once you hear it. The moment you have an instinct to act on a goal, or you know you should do something, but you feel yourself hesitate, just count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That'll switch the gears in your mind. It'll activate your prefrontal cortex. Boom, when you hit 1, go. There's a 5-second window between your instincts that change your life and your mind killing them. So it's critical that you learn how to wake up and take control in that moment. And the 5-second rule is going to help you do that as a tool for change and for making powerful decisions.
So you say that our brains are built to protect us
Yes.
From change and the scary things in life.
Yes.
But to hone on the point that these are our brains. So what does our body do in those instances when we're faced with those scary things in life?
Well, so one of my favorite uses of the 5-second rule is to use it for mind control. And I say that with a complete straight face.
Right, not
okay? So I used to be someone that suffered from tremendous anxiety. I took Zoloft for 20 years after panic attacks started in law school. And Zoloft was a wonderful drug for me to take. I kind of thought about anxiety a lot like, all right, if I were diabetic, I would take insulin. There's no shame in mental health. We've all got something going on. Take the drugs, stabilize your body, and get on with your life. And about 4 years ago, I started to wonder, and this is a personal story, I started to wonder, could I use the 5-second rule to actually control my thoughts? Could I use it to cure myself of anxiety? Now, the answer is yes, you can, and yes, you should. But the reason why I was inspired to do this is because, like so many of you, I have kids. 2 of our 3 kids struggle with anxiety. We have a 17, a 16, and an 11-year-old. And for our 16 and our 11-year-old, right around the time they were 10, they both had these really acute moments of anxiety where they could no longer do sleepovers. They were limiting what they were doing. I mean, it's so sad when you see a little kid starting to edit their experiences in life because of their thoughts.
Right.
And so I thought about 4 years ago, okay, if I really want to help my kids deal with anxiety, maybe it's time for me, Mel Robbins, to come off of Zoloft and try this 5-second rule and learn everything that I can about neuroscience and anxiety and how it works and what it is and what it isn't and the connection between the feelings in your body and what your brain does, so that I can help my kids, right? Because it's it's not really fair if mom's on Zoloft going, oh, change your thoughts.
Right.
But if I teach myself how to deal with the worries and the panic and the anxiety that I used to struggle with, maybe I could help them. So here's what I did. First, you have to understand what anxiety is, and you have to understand the connection between worry, which is something we all do, and self-doubt, which is something we all do, and anxiety. So we all have a habit of worrying. And just for the sake of this conversation, habits are behaviors that you repeat when you're not paying attention. So believe it or not, it's not just nail biting or tapping a pencil. A habit is even when you back up your car in the morning, if you look over your right shoulder, that's a habit. It's behavior that's been automated in your brain. And worrying is a habit. Worrying is a pattern of thinking that you default to when you're not paying attention. When you're not paying attention, you're sitting in a meeting, it's very easy. Have you ever noticed how your thoughts just drift? And you start thinking about, oh my gosh, is my loved one okay? Oh, I wonder if I'm in trouble. Like you start immediately thinking and worrying, and we just kind of default there. And so the connection between worry and anxiety is close cousins. Anxiety is what happens when your habit of worrying spirals out of control. Your habit, it's just like drinking. You might start drinking casually, and if you don't get that habit in check, it can spiral out of control into an addiction. So what happens when you are anxious is that you not only start to worry, but your body starts to feel really anxious too. Your heart will race. You might start sweating. Your throat can get dry. You can get a pit in your stomach. And when you start to feel the physical sensations of worry and anxiety, and then you got your mind drifting over to something's going wrong,
right,
that is when you can start to really deal with anxiety. And if you have anxiety, you're not alone. They say that 30% of women suffer from anxiety at some point in their lives. I will tell you, I have been really startled by the number of men that come up to me at the end of speeches that I give as I'm on the corporate circuit giving, keynotes, that come up and say, do you have any more information about anxiety? Do you have any more information about anxiety? And 9 times out of 10, it's for them. And I think with all the rapid change in the world and technology and how much, in everybody's jobs, things are innovating, there is a rise in this habit of worrying, this sense of a loss of control, and feeling anxious is very normal. So, we talked a little bit about, I believe that you can control your mind. It's important for you to foundationally understand that anxiety and worry are the same thing. It's just that your body starts to get agitated, and that's when we call worrying anxiety. And you can actually beat it. Now, the key is stabilizing your thoughts. And you can use the 5-second rule to do that. One other thing I want to explain to you, and this is something that I was just on with Dr. Oz on his syndicated talk show talking about, is this exact conversation. How do you use the 5-second rule to cure your anxiety, to control your emotions, to stop yourself from melting down? And here's something that you need to understand. First of all, when it comes to your body, in your body, there's no difference in your body between feeling excited and feeling anxious. No difference whatsoever. So what do you feel when you're excited about something? You're going to go to, like, who's somebody you would love to see in concert?
Sting.
Okay, oh, Sting. So Sting is playing. You've got incredible tickets. You are standing right there at the stage. The music's starting. He's about to come on. What are you feeling in your body?
Those butterflies, that kind of, the literal kind of flutter inside.
Yes, exactly. And that we call excitement because you're there, you're going to see Sting, this is going to be amazing. Now, when you're worried about something or you're anxious about something, maybe you have to speak up, maybe you have to give a speech, maybe you have a tough conversation that you've got to have about the IEP for your kid and the advocacy that they need. Maybe you got to talk about your, getting a raise. Maybe you've launched a new business and you really want to share it with your friend. Right before you're about to do that thing that you've never done, that you feel a little uncertain or a little insecure about, right? What does your body feel like? Exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
You got the butterflies. You
Right.
might start sweating a little bit. Your heart might race. Now, the only difference between Shelby being at the Sting concert and you standing outside the meeting at your kid's school going in to talk about IEPs and getting help for your kid, which was something that made me very nervous. The only difference between those two scenarios, because our bodies are doing the same thing, is that Shelby's brain is saying, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, Sting is about to come. Oh my gosh, she's not saying, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. Oh my gosh, I'm at a concert. And, oh, something must be wrong because I feel butterflies. No, she's like, Sting's about to come, yes! Right?
Yeah.
Your brain is telling you. Your brain
Right.
has context. In this situation over here, you see a friend. You have this new business you've launched. You really want to share this idea with your friend. But you got butterflies in your stomach. Your brain says something different than what Shelby's brain is saying. It's going, uh-oh. She might think you're pushy. Maybe you shouldn't talk to her. This is not a good idea. You're not fully trained yet in this stuff. Or, you're not ready to have this conversation. Or who do you think you are to have this conversation? Or, no. Your mind starts to get worried and basically says a bunch of negative garbage. Your body, by the way, excitement, fear, same thing. Excitement, anxiety, same thing. Excitement, uncertainty, same thing. Excitement, fear, exact same thing in your body. She's not afraid of Sting coming on stage, but her body is having all the same signals as if you were afraid of him. Seriously. So the only difference between excitement, fear, anxiety, worry, uncertainty, and stress is what your brain says it is. We can use that to our advantage to cure anxiety and to cure the habits of self-doubt. Here's how you're going to do it. You're going to use the 5-second rule to trick your mind into thinking that you're excited instead of thinking thoughts that actually expand the nerves, the anxiousness, all that stuff. So you use the 5-second rule in combination with what we call an anchor thought. An anchor thought is a thought that makes you excited. It's a thought that makes you happy. It's a thought that will help you stabilize your brain. Because Shelby could have easily, at the Sting concert, taken the butterflies in her stomach and started catastrophizing.
Right.
Sting's not coming. I'm going to get trampled.
Right.
I feel claustrophobic. Oh my God. Like, you could have done that, but she didn't, because her brain had something else that it was willing to anchor on, to ground her, right? And excitement. So what you're going to do, let's just take the scenario of you have a meeting that's making you really anxious. You have a presentation you're going to have to give. You have something that's important to you, and you're worried you're not going to be able to make this sale happen or make the IEP happen or whatever it may be. Outside the meeting, the moment you feel yourself starting to worry, the butterflies are kicking in, you're starting to go Niagara Falls down under your armpits. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, why would you want to count? The reason why you want to count is because, remember, thinking patterns can be habits. And so when you get into the habit of doubting yourself and worrying, you're now in the interior part of your brain, and that can easily take over and expand and escalate the situation. So you want to cut that off, and you want to stabilize what's happening by activating your prefrontal cortex. You're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's going to activate this puppy up here. Now that your mind is awakened in terms of the frontal lobe being awakened, you're ready to accept a new thought. You can't just stand there outside I've tried this. I've had psychologists for years tell me, oh, just change the channel.
Right.
Your brain
Right.
is like a TV, just change the channel. No, it's not. My brain is more like a freight train that is moving at an agitated state of 65 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. And if I try to just switch the thought, the train is gonna jump the tracks.
Yeah.
You cannot go from a state of agitation to, you can't do it.
Right.
But you can slow a state of agitation down. And the way you do it is the 5-second rule. So you're feeling the butterflies, you're feeling the nerves, you're feeling the armpit sweating. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That'll stabilize the situation and stop your mind from expanding and making it worse. Now you can take that anchor thought. Pick something before the meeting. This is critical. Don't try to create an anchor thought where you're freaked out. Pick something beforehand. So in the case that I'm using, that was my situation of going and talking to the school about my son's dyslexia and the IEP and everything else that he was needing in terms of special ed, I was picking a vision of him sitting in a classroom with the tools that he needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And coming home and being really like happy.
Right.
And the second that I would feel I'd be in the meeting and the teacher would say something that was like stern, so that I'm like, uh-oh, she's not on our side, I'd be like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm picturing my son with, the vision of him coming home. He's actually reading, like this
Yeah.
is incredible. And that stabilizes the worry. And so now I'm in control of my thoughts, and I haven't done what I used to do, which is the second I start feeling the pit in my stomach, my thoughts go catastrophic. They're not going to give him the services. My son is going to never read. He's going to be bullied. This is going to...
Right.
And now, by the way, if I were to have allowed that to happen, when your mind starts to go worry and anxious, it hijacks your thinking capacity. They've done all these studies with brain capacity about what happens to your mind when you worry. Mm-hmm. And you actually cannot focus on anything else once it gets too big.
Right.
So using this technique, you'll be able to stay present in a meeting. You'll be able to stay present in a situation. You'll be able to stay present in a conversation or with another person or on a plane so that you can control what you're thinking. And so I personally have used 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, marry it with an anchor thought to cure myself of anxiety. I haven't taken Zoloft in 4 years. I haven't had a panic attack. I don't even worry about anything. And this ties into confidence so tightly because confidence is a skill, and it's a skill that you build. And you build it only one way. You cannot think your way to being more confident. You have to prove it to yourself through action. And the thing about confidence that's really interesting is that the more that you start to use it to stop worrying, you'll actually see yourself moving forward in your life.
Using confidence to stop,
using the
anchor thought?
5-second rule to stop worrying.
Yeah.
It's just a tool, that's all it is.
Right.
It's just a little tool that helps you wake up and kind of take control and redirect your thoughts and really have power in the moment and power over your decisions. But there's a really important connection to confidence because as you start to lower self-doubt and worry, right, you will actually be able to push yourself to take actions or to speak up when normally you wouldn't. When you see yourself taking those actions, and when you see yourself beating fear and your excuses, you build the skill of confidence. You're seeing yourself as the kind of person that you can rely on. And that is what confidence is. Confidence is not a personality trait. It's actually the ability to go from thought into action.
So to trust yourself that you can do this, that you're capable of doing
Yes,
it.
and I think it's even more than that. I think it's this idea that, because you might not trust yourself.
Right.
I think that confidence is the willingness to try, knowing that you'll either succeed or you'll survive, right? You're going to either succeed or you're going to survive, but damn it, you're going to try.
Right.
And when you become the kind of person that has that mentality of, hey, I'll either survive this conversation, or I'm going to be successful.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm going to have it. That is the mental shift that will help you start to build the skill of confidence. And most people think that hey, confidence is a belief. It is, the more that you see yourself doing things and the more you build competency in something, you start to have less anxiety about it, right? So that's why you believe in yourself.
Right.
But for those of us that don't believe in ourselves, being told that confidence is believing in yourself, that is horrible advice because you don't know what to do. Well, I don't believe in myself, so don't tell me confidence is believing in myself. I know I don't. Tell me how to build confidence.
Right.
Well, confidence is built one push at a time. Confidence is built by wrangling those thoughts that you have that stop you, tuning them down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and pushing forward, knowing you'll succeed or you'll survive, but damn it, you're going to try.
Well, I like that dichotomy of between not succeed or fail, but succeed or survive.
Correct.
That this isn't, whatever you're scared of doing, one, the fact that you're scared of it shows that you're worried about it. And you're saying that worry is a habit.
Yeah.
You're used to going to worst case scenario in your
Totally.
mind.
And that's, by the way, the worst case scenario is your brain's way to protect you from doing something that is uncertain or scary or new. Mm-hmm. So part of your wiring is that you're hardwired in your brain to, within an instant, go worst case scenario because your brain is worried about things that are uncertain, scary, or new. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's a habit and it's also a mechanism in your mind that is tricking you into staying safe.
And so the key then to confidence, one, so you're saying that confidence it's not a trait, it's a skill.
Yes.
So implying that
Let
it
me
can be
prove it to you.
built, it
Yes.
can be practiced.
Oh, absolutely. Let me prove it to you. If I told you right now that to list everybody in your life that makes you feel good about yourself, okay? Those are people that make you feel confident. Now list everybody in your life that when you're around them, you shrink. You feel a little uncomfortable. You feel a little on edge. You don't feel like you can trust them. Those are people that make you feel like insecure. Mm-hmm. So confidence there are certain areas of your life where you are confident. There's certain areas in your life where you're not confident. There are skills that you have, whether it's cooking or gardening or selling or my husband is like the greatest guy on the planet with Excel. He can do anything on an Excel spreadsheet. And I can't do anything on an Excel spreadsheet. But so there are skills that you know you can do. You don't even have to think about it. You're not worried about having to do it. I'm that same way about public speaking. Don't even have to think about it. Don't even have to worry because I've practiced it for so long. There are things that I'm terrible at that I lack confidence in. But I could build confidence by practicing it. I could build confidence in myself around people that make me insecure if I were to study the triggers as to why I feel insecure. If I were to have conversations with those people, or if I were to become confident enough to distance myself. So your confidence is a skill set, like a muscle, that gets built based on experiences, based on the actions that you take, and it's something that's fully within your control and that can be worked on. And for women, oh my gosh, the number one factor in a woman's success is confidence. Perceived confidence,
Yeah.
more important than anything. More important than anything.
So self-confidence or perceived confidence, are those different things?
Very different things. So confidence, there are basically a couple different buckets of confidence. There's the internal mindset confidence that a lot of us don't have, that you can build as a skill through action. There is the competency confidence that comes through gaining by practicing
Right.
competency. And then there is the external confidence that you project that other people perceive. Here's something that every single woman needs to know. Harvard Business School just wrote up about this study where they asked a ton of managers across different industries, what is the number one reason why you're not promoting your female, people that you're managing? Do you know what the manager said? Number one reason. I thought she lacked the confidence for the new role. Now here's the kicker, a kick in the gut, by the way, is that the managers were uncomfortable telling you, the woman, that she lacked confidence. Well, because they didn't want to be called sexist, and more importantly, they had no idea how to actually coach somebody into becoming more confident. If you're perceived as confident, you make more money, you advance faster, you have more satisfaction in what you're doing. And the thing that I want every single woman on the planet to understand is that confidence is not a personality trait. You can be extroverted and talk a lot and have zero belief in yourself. That's how I used to be. I used to be the loudmouth, bossy person that didn't believe a word that was coming out of my mouth,
Yeah.
didn't like myself, none of it. There are tons of folks that are insecure, that it's uncomfortable to talk into a meeting. You're not lacking confidence, you believe in your ideas, you're lacking the courage to actually step out of your comfort zone. The one piece of advice that I want every single woman to know is that there are two kinds of work. There's visible work and there's invisible work. You only get credit for visible work. Visible work is how you behave in a meeting. That's a very, very important place to practice the skill of confidence. What do you do to practice the skill of confidence? Number one, stop taking notes and just take note. If you have an important meeting, I used to be a lawyer, and you need all the details, hit the memo transcribe thing on your phone. Let Siri take the notes for you. Then take that file, go straight to YouTube, make it a private file, upload it. You know what YouTube will do?
Transcribe it.
Transcribe it for free.
Yeah.
So now you got your notes. But I don't ever want to see you in a meeting like this. Not like this. Because
what is that?
You're
what
in
does
a
that
visible
project?
place.
Yeah.
What you're projecting is that you're not part of the meeting. You're just there taking notes. Your physicality is bent over, so now your brain is focused on transcribing. I want you sitting back. I want you jotting, taking note about a few things, and then I want you to do something that may feel uncomfortable. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do not leave a meeting without ever talking. Don't do it. It is a very visible place for you to be seen. Here's another thing I want you to do. If you're uncomfortable sharing your ideas, and I have been startled by the number of people that write us from around the world that say that their biggest fear in their career was actually speaking in meetings and sharing their ideas. Biggest fear. And they started using the 5-second rule, changing everything about their career trajectory. So one of the things I want you to do in meetings, obviously just take note, don't take notes.
Right.
I want you to speak in a meeting. If you're uncomfortable, you don't have to share an idea. Comment. You know, I know we're wrapping up, but I just wanted to say in listening to all these ideas, I think Shelby's suggestion was a really important strategic consideration that I really liked a lot. That's it.
Right.
Now, did you pick up on one word that I used?
No.
Strategic. They have done studies. This is psycho research, because it'll make you really mad when you hear this. They've done studies where they coach women executives to use the word strategic in visible settings. Conversations with your bosses, how you behave in meetings, emails. Within 1 year of coaching women just to say the stupid word strategic,
Right.
strategery.
Strategery.
Yes. The annual reviews and the remarks for how executives are perceived as strategic contributors jumps dramatically.
Just by saying
Simply
the word.
by using the word. Here's another thing to pay attention to. Your emails. Are they to the point? Do you have the confidence to write an email that is to the point, or do you ramble and go all over the place and the I
explain
thinks and
it,
explain
right.
yourself? So the most important thing that you can develop and work on for yourself, particularly for women, is the skill of confidence. Pay attention to visible versus invisible work. Raise your visibility by practicing small acts of confidence. Use the 5-second rule to interrupt the habits of taking notes, of saying I'm sorry, of writing long-winded emails, of not elevating your ideas.
Right.
And you'll be surprised by what happens.
There's a lot here to talk about, and that's the thing. I wish we could go on for hours.
Well,
but,
what's something that your success readers and your listeners what are some of the big issues? And I'll tell you how to use the 5-second rule to immediately, in combination with the latest research, to solve them.
Well, and I think anxiety is a big one there.
Yeah.
Because that's something that people don't talk about.
Yes.
And especially, I love the fact that you said that, you take medication for your heart, you take medication for diabetes.
Yeah.
Some people have to take medication
course.
for anxiety and for depression.
Yes.
I think that's an important point, because people will automatically, when you're beating yourself up in your brain, you are also thinking that it's something to be ashamed of if you're suffering from anxiety or if you're suffering from depression.
Welcome to the club.
And that's the thing, is that's what I love what you're saying, though, is that everybody has it. Really, everybody does.
Yeah, and if you don't have it, somebody you love does.
Yeah.
And so understanding what it is and what it isn't is super, super important. And if you have somebody that has panic attacks, that's even one more step removed from anxiety. We talked about anxiety and worry earlier. When somebody that you love goes into a state of panic, what we know is that their bodies have now gotten so, the body experience, the heart racing, the sweating, because they didn't stabilize their thoughts and the spotlight effect took over, and now the brain is magnifying what's going on. Now the brain is in an emergency state. And the brain is now really believes that you're having a heart attack or believes that your life is in danger. So if you have a loved one that suffers from panic attacks, what you've probably experienced is that they immediately need to leave the room. They immediately start thinking that they're having a heart attack. Now, the reason why your brain goes into that DEFCON 10 kind of mode is because if you're standing in your kitchen and you're getting ready for the day, and you have a loved one that's anxious about what's about to happen. Maybe it's a tough conversation at work. Maybe there's a presentation. Maybe they have to travel. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe they just have a panic attacks because it's become a habit, a default mode that's encoded. It just is what it is. And they all of a sudden start to freak out. Oh my God, something's wrong. I can't, like my son would be like, I can't drink, something's in my throat. Like he would What's happening is your mind. Let's go back to the example of Shelby being at the Sting concert. When she's at the Sting concert and her body starts to get butterflies, the mind has context for why there are butterflies and it calls it excitement. If you're standing in your kitchen and you start to obsess over a conversation you need to have with your boss, or you start to obsess over something that you're nervous about doing in the business that you're building, and your body starts to then match those thoughts and you get the butterflies and the sweats, first level is going to be anxiety. The thoughts are going to start to spiral. You're going to start to obsess over what you have to do. You're going to do that worst case scenario thing. If you don't 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and stabilize your mind and interrupt that pattern, what's going to happen next is your body will go into full panic mode. Because if your thoughts get super crazy and worried, your brain is going to start to go, holy, what is going on? She must be having a heart attack because she's standing in a kitchen and this doesn't make any sense. Why would her body be freaking out?
Right.
Your body's freaking out because I've let my thoughts go bananas. So now my heart's really racing. So now my mind's going, maybe she is having a heart attack. Right. Maybe there is something wrong. Maybe there's something in this room. And so your mind goes into overdrive. Now, have you ever had the experience where you hear a loud noise and you're like that?
Yeah.
There are two responses, automatic responses that we're born with in our brains to protect us. One is ducking our heads. Even a baby, the age of 6 months, ducks their head at a loud noise. Highly instinctual behavior to protect you.
Yeah.
Another one is to reach out and stabilize yourself as you're falling. So as you get kind of wobbly, you don't even think about it. Your mind takes over and directs your body.
Yeah.
So if you develop a habit of anxiety and panic attacks, basically you're escalating everyday life concerns through this funnel from worry to anxiety, to the anxiety then escalating the body, to now your mind going, holy cow, I better protect them.
Right.
So that's why they get you out of the room. That's why you start to think you're dying, so that you'll get help. So that's why it's so important for you to start by addressing and fighting any worry that you have and redirecting your thoughts. If you start to struggle with anxiety, that's why it's so important to start using this strategy 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now an anchor thought to stabilize the thoughts. And if you have panic attacks, same thing, exact same thing. Now it's going to be very hard to get somebody out of a panic attack. The best way to deal with a panic attack is to just sit with the person and say, and what else? And what else? Tell me what else you're worried about. Tell me, because if you can get all those thoughts out of the head.
So tell them to verbalize all that stuff.
Yes. Talk. And then slowly, and have them walk as they're doing it. Because the physicality of it kind of unwinds it.
Yeah.
And then, when they're just kind of buzzing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now let's go to the anchor thought.
Okay.
That's how you deal with it.
Excellent.
Oh, trust me. I've done it with myself. My husband's done it with me. My kids have it works like a charm. I remember when my son was really struggling with anxiety, we were driving, he was trying to build up to doing a sleepover, and we used this technique, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, with an anchor thought of him being super excited and waking up happy and all this stuff. And there's research out of Harvard that's recently been published where they call it, I think they call it, it's not reframing, it's reappraising performance anxiety, if you want to Google it, reappraising performance anxiety. They did this test where they had people that were about to either run a race, sing in a karaoke contest, or take a test, use a strategy very similar to what I'm talking about. So right before you're about to take a test or run a race, we all have performance anxiety, right? So they trained kids in control groups. One control group would say, I'm excited. I'm excited to run this race. I'm excited to take this test. I'm excited to give this speech. The other group, they told them to just think positive thoughts without the I'm excited. Because remember what we talked about in the beginning. Shelby being at the Sting concert being excited, exact same body state as me standing outside a meeting for my dyslexic son's IEP. Butterflies, flutterflies. She's excited, I'm nervous.
Yeah.
So they had students before they were about to perform, track or whatever, or karaoke, I'm excited. In every single instance, every single one, they perform better. Why? Because by saying I'm excited, you give your mind context for the butterflies, and guess what else it does? It doesn't allow worry to hijack your mind, so you can actually now have your full prefrontal cortex to focus on performing, because you're not focused on managing all this garbage.
Right.
Works in study after study after study. Not only, you might not lose the jitters, but you gain control of your brain. I got an incredible question from JT Photo Film about a video that I posted yesterday that was me documenting a moment of anxiety and what I was doing to calm myself down. And JT asked this question about how is it that my husband, Chris, deals with my anxiety? Because anxiety is the most contagious emotion out there. You've all had the experience, right, where company's coming over and somebody is freaking out about the state of the house and cleaning like a frenzy. That it would be me. It's so easy to catch somebody's anxiety. And so I wanted you, Chris, to address some of these questions, because the first question was, do you ever catch my anxiety when I get anxious?
No.
I think you get annoyed.
At least not in the moment.
How is it that you don't catch it? Because I catch our daughter Kendall's anxiety, or our daughter Sawyer, or our son's anxiety. But you seem to be able to insulate yourself from other people's anxiety.
Well, I mean, it's a good question, because I do sometimes find myself catching our kids' anxiety, but I don't catch yours. And maybe that's just because of the amount of time that we've had together and the moments, frequent moments often, where I've been the one sitting there with you and trying to extract your anxiety, because that's really the technique that has always been so effective with you.
Can you explain that? Break down what you do. If I start getting anxious, like I did on Sunday, or I have throughout our 24-year marriage, what do you do? Because you have this superpower of being able to remain calm. And the thing that I find the most validating is, even though you don't feel anxious, you are able to validate my reality of being anxious, even though you're not in the same reality.
I I mean, without giving it too much thought, I think some of it has to do with the fact that, first of all, touch is huge, right?
What do you mean touch?
Meaning being able to hold your hand or being close and upfront and personal to what you're experiencing, and just pulling what you're feeling out of your mouth. Like that act of inviting you to describe what's going on, to give detail to it, and to almost not let up, to keep like pulling a thread, like what else is going on? What else is there? What else are you feeling? And I think maybe part of the reason why I don't get triggered by it in that moment is because I've seen it work so effectively that once you get it all out,
It's like barfing.
it dissipates. So it's almost as though the calming nature of the question set and extracting that from your brain or from your heart or wherever you're feeling it, I know, or I have a high degree of confidence that it will calm down. It may not just extinguish itself, but it will go away.
So can we break this down for people? Because I'm not very good at that.
I didn't watch your video the other day, so I wondered what you did to actually calm yourself.
I journaled, I talked to you. I then texted my 3 closest friends, Mindy and Lisa and Gretchen. And then I went for a really long walk, which stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system and calms you down. But so technique number 1 is to give somebody a hug or hold their hand, center them with physical touch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sit up close in front of them. Make sure that you have the as much eye contact as you can have physically with that person.
Okay. I'm realizing that you do this consciously.
It's
Sneaky guy.
It's been a few years.
And then the second thing you do is give people the questions that you might start asking the person in your life that's feeling anxious.
Well, I would start with, tell me about your anxiety right now. What are you feeling? What's happening? Not only physically in your body, but of course emotionally. I mean, those are the 2 main pillars.
And then you keep going, and anything else. And he does that over until I'm literally like the tank is completely empty. You know what else I've noticed, and I think this is a really important thing, is that you don't respond to what comes out of my mouth.
No answers. You cannot provide any direction or guidance or go for the solve.
Why?
Because there is no solve, particularly when you're in the acute moment. There is nothing is going to resolve that right there and then, even if you have the best, idea ever, which is super tough for guys in particular, I think, because we're so programmed to go for the solve rather than just be with it.
Here's what I just realized at the biggest possible level about why what you do with me when I feel anxious is so genius. Well, anxiety is all about uncertainty, and typically it's about what you're afraid of in the future that's coming that you can't control. And by getting close to somebody physically, even if it's over a video call and you lean in, but you always sit very close to me, or you give me a huge hug when I'm feeling anxious, or you hold my hand, you're grounding me with physical touch back in this moment. And then the questions of extracting it get me to a point where I'm empty and no longer spinning, and I'm right back in this moment when I have nothing left to say. And because you don't either try to discount or solve or invalidate anything that comes out of my mouth, you just get it out, I'm able to get it all out. Because the second you would say, well, you don't have to worry about that or this, that, and the other, somebody that's having anxiety will start to argue back, which then takes you back into the future fear.
Yeah, then you're jumping into a conversation, which is the last thing that the person who's suffering the anxiety wants to be having.
Since you've done this with me 100 times, and we have kids that have some anxiety, what is it that you've observed when you get somebody back to zero and in the moment? What do you observe in the person?
I don't know. I've never really thought about that. I think what I observe is what you just said, which is people coming back to right now, and how that is in and of itself is such a powerful grounding mechanism because you're when you're right here, you're out of your head. You're not thinking about yesterday or tomorrow or wherever the source of that anxiety may be coming from. You're present to your physical space and surroundings, and that I think I know it has a profound effect on calming it, not necessarily extinguishing it, but certainly calming it.
I think that's your superpower. I really do. Like, you are the most grounded, calm person in my life. And I wonder if it's the years of having a meditation practice and being a practicing Buddhist that has trained that skill in you.
I think so. I mean, I've never sat down to think about where it comes from necessarily, but yes, in Buddhist tradition or practices, completely just being in observance and the act of deep listening, not just opening your ears, but really listening for what is being said is totally, that's right up a Buddhist alley for sure.
Wow. Now I know why our kids like you more. I'm more fun, but you're the one that grounds us all. So your body reacts to something first. So you feel the stress first, or you feel the trigger related to past trauma first. You feel something happening in your body first. And the mistake that we make is we then immediately race up to our heads and we assess with our minds, what does that mean? Oh, something must be wrong. Oh, I'm really stressed out. Oh, this isn't working. And then your thoughts, usually negative when it comes to some stress response, then dictate what you do next, which is yell or be frustrated or feel frazzled. And so what I'm going to tell you to do is to reverse that chain of events, because everything begins with a sensation in the body. Your nervous system picks up on the cues around you first. Then it goes up into your mind, and your mind tries to make sense of the sensation. And that making sense of, which is usually a negative interpretation, that then triggers a negative response. And so let me give you an example just for those of you that don't have a steam shower or don't have time to jump in a cold plunge. Have you ever noticed?
I just had a cold bath. I just fill it up with cold water or I take a cold shower.
So yes, and either work. But have you ever noticed that you can be super frustrated or feeling really low energy or kind of depressed or anxious, and if you go outside for a walk alone, that within 10 minutes you feel different?
Yeah, totally.
It's because you have shifted your physiological state. And when you shift or relax your physiological state, it relaxes your mind.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of us, and talk therapy is a fabulous thing if you can afford to do it. But what happens in talk therapy is you talk through all this stuff and you're in a calm state when you're in therapy, aren't you? So you're utilizing a part of your brain to talk through the issues in your life when you are in a calm, non-reactive state. And then have you ever noticed you can talk for an hour with your therapist, but then you get out into your life and you get into the situation with your spouse or your kids or your colleague that you just processed with your therapist. You know that it is related to your trauma from childhood. You know that you're working on not being a yeller. You know you're working on all these patterns. And yet you get into the situation.
You're triggered.
And you're triggered. Well, the reason, and then all of a sudden you lose control again. And the reason why that happens is because it's not about your thinking first. It's about the fact that all of the triggers are stored in your nervous system and in your body. And you, in therapy, are using a part of the brain, your prefrontal cortex, which is present when you're calm. But when you get triggered in life, your kids are frustrating you. The traffic is terrible. You know, you're exhausted and you didn't record the 4th podcast in the day.
Yeah.
You're now in a different part of the brain.
Yeah.
And your nervous system is now flipped on. And so that's why you have to attack your mindset from your physiological state. And you've got to use these tools. Now, a second thing that I want to say is this. I said that you can choose to become who you want to become at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
I subscribe to the whole body of research around behavioral activation therapy.
Okay, what's that?
Behavioral activation therapy is act like the person you want to become now.
So act into the feeling instead of feel into the acting.
Yes. So let's just say that you are somebody who wants to be, I don't know, we'll just use an example. If you want to be somebody like part of your bucket list because you've read Young Forever and you want to be, a marathon runner and you're going to get back in shape, right? Instead of thinking about it, instead of like being the you today that's 20 pounds over shape and the last place that you've run is to the car to try to beat the parking meter person,
Yeah.
That's the last time you ever took a run.
Yeah.
In order to become the new version of yourself, start to act like a marathon runner would today. What do? Well, they have tennis shoes. They typically go outside every day. They might have different ways of eating. They probably follow different social media accounts than you do.
Mm-hmm.
They probably wake up at a different time. And so if you start acting like who you want to be today, an interesting thing happens with your mindset. You see, when your brain sees you doing something new, it starts to relate to you as that new person. This is why mantras often are bullshit. Because people will want to learn how to love themselves, Dr. Hyman, and they will stand in front of a mirror.
Affirmations. You mean.
Yeah. After 40 years of beating themselves up, hate my body, I hate this, I'm a loser, I'm unlovable, nobody's ever going to love you, you failed at this, you failed at that, now look at the bags under your eyes and one boob's hanging lower and this, that, and the other thing. You've been saying that for decades. You cannot stand in front of that mirror and say the affirmation, I love myself, because your brain's like, bitch, no, you don't. Did you see how you talk to yourself? I don't believe that. And so you have to take the actions first before you feel like it. Because if you see yourself following Dr. Hyman's protocol and eating in a way that actually activates the healing part of your body, your brain looks at you and goes, oh, look at you. You actually do care about your health. And your brain starts to change the things it's telling you. It begins with your actions first.
And then what about the excuses that we all make? Oh, I can't because this, or I don't have time, or I'm too tired, or, I don't have money, or I don't, whatever the excuses are.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that? Because I think the idea of acting into the feeling is a brilliant one. And I often tell people that just try it. And then you don't have to actually, decide you're going to do it. You just have to try it and then see how you feel.
Yeah. So here's the thing about feelings. It's interesting. I think you should ignore your feelings.
What?
Yeah, I do.
We should talk about our feelings, express our feelings.
No, you should ignore. When it comes to change, you're going to have to ignore how you feel because you are never going to feel like doing something that is different than what you always done. Your brain is not wired that way. Your brain is wired for certainty. Your nervous system is wired for safety. Your entire body is predisposed to keep you in the patterns that you're in because it knows them.
Yeah.
Even though it sucks, Dr. Hyman, for you to tell yourself forever that you're unlovable or you're unworthy or you're always going to be with broken people, even though it sucks, it's familiar.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't make any sense that you would tell yourself things over and over and over that continue to make you feel broken, but it's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you try to change a thinking pattern or you try to change a behavior pattern, your own body will shove resistance in your way because your body is biased towards wanting you to continue to eat what you eat, continue to think what you think.
Autopilot.
Yeah, it's just on autopilot. And so number one, expect to never feel like it. Motivation's garbage. It's not going to be there when you need it.
Yeah.
Expect to not feel like eating what Dr. Hyman tells you to eat. Expect to not feel like interrupting the bullshit thoughts that you don't want to take with you in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Expect to not feel like it. And so that leaves you with only one thing. You have to force yourself to do it. There is no other way. This is not easy. If it were, everybody would have 6-pack abs. Everyone would have $1 million in the bank.
Yeah.
And so your excuses are always going to be there.
True.
And when you realize that there's nothing wrong with you, you don't lack the willpower or discipline. That's not the issue. The issue is you've been waiting to feel like doing it. And you're never going to feel like doing it because this is what you've always done. And so expect the resistance to be there. And you can use the 5-second rule. That's why I invented the thing.
Tell us about that. What's the 5-second rule?
So the 5-second rule.
You wrote a book about it.
I did. I did. The 5-second rule is a brain hack that I created in a moment of desperation because, like everybody, I didn't feel like doing the things I needed to do to address the problems in my life. It was 2007. My husband and I were $800,000 in debt.
Hey.
His restaurant business was failing. I had lost my job. Our entire life was what we put on the line to start the restaurant business. We had 3 kids under the age of 10. We were living in a fancy suburb outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And we were about to lose everything. Checks were bouncing left and right. I was unemployed. Chris had not been paid in 6 months. Friends and family had invested in the business, so we couldn't really tell anybody how bad it was.
Oy.
And at 41, Dr. Hyman, I found myself in a situation where I didn't even recognize myself. Like I never thought that this would be what happened to my life. And I faced my issues and our problems by drinking myself into the ground, screaming at Chris, and blaming everything on him, and basically sleeping in, hitting the snooze button 5 times. The kids were missing the bus. Like it was, and here's the irony is that even when you're in a crisis, you know what you should do.
So there's some part of yourself that knew.
Of course. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that you should get your ass out of bed and get a job.
Get the kids breakfast.
Yeah, and the drinking isn't helping. And maybe you should tell somebody what's going on. Maybe you should ask for help. Maybe you should get outside and take a walk. Like this isn't PhD material level crap that you need to do.
Mm-mm.
But I couldn't make myself do it. Why? Because I didn't feel like it. And when you start to blow off the little things, like getting up on time, eating healthy, practicing kindness to yourself, staying connected, asking for help. When you start to get the little things wrong, it just snowballs into everything being wrong. And the good news is the way that you get back on track, and this is also what you believe and what your research and your work demonstrates, is that you get your life back on track. You get your health back on track. You reset your mind and the default ways that you think the exact same way by getting the little things right. Because when you get up, when the alarm rings, your brain sees a human being that has the willpower to get up. When you make your bed in the morning, your brain sees a human being that completes things. When you walk into the bathroom and you look in the mirror and you don't criticize yourself, but you give yourself a high five in the mirror, which is something I call the high five habit.
Another book.
Yeah. You literally activates neural pathways in your brain around positive encouragement toward self. You know, when you journal, when you meditate, when you move your body, your brain sees a human being that prioritizes themselves. So it's through the actions, the teeny, teeny little actions that snowball into massive transformation. And so one night, it was Tuesday. It was it was a Monday night in 2008. I mean, it was bad. We were a week away from a bankruptcy proceeding. Liens on the house. Chris and I fighting like cats and dogs. And I'm sitting in my living room and I'm like, Mel, you got to pull your shit together. Like, tomorrow it's the new you, woman. You got to get up. You got to be nice to Chris. You got to look for a job. You got to get out, get those kids on the bus. You got to do it all. And what happened is I all of a sudden saw a rocket ship launch across the television screen. And I thought, that's it. That's
like
the answer.
Literally watch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's the dumbest story. I was 4 bourbon Manhattans into the evening. So it was probably the alcohol that made me make the connection. But I was like, that's it. Tomorrow morning when the alarm goes off, you're going to launch yourself out of bed so fast, just like NASA launches a rocket, that you're not going to be in that bed, Mel, when the anxiety and the depression hit. Because I was having cascading panic attacks, like generalized at this point. So the next morning, the alarm rings. And all I did was count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I stood up. And that one decision changed the trajectory of my life. And what I had discovered by mistake during one of the worst moments of my life is the single most powerful starting ritual, which is what habit researchers and neuroscientists call a technique, metacognition, that you can use to interrupt old habit loops stored in the basal ganglia. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 interrupts that encoded pattern, and it draws your focus to the prefrontal cortex, giving you a manual way to switch gears between autopilot, subconscious, trauma patterns, all of it, and activate the part of the brain that helps you change, that helps you learn new behavior, that helps you take control. The 5-second rule has now spread.
That sounds like the holy grail.
Oh, it is the holy grail. It's now being used in clinical settings with pediatricians. It's profoundly effective with OCD and PTSD. I had an entire inpatient wing, the medical staff in a Philadelphia hospital, come and tell us that of all the things that they can give somebody on discharge after an inpatient commit, the 5-second rule is probably the most effective thing. Because,
so break it down. What is the 5-second rule?
So the 5-second rule is any moment where you know what you should do, but you feel the feeling come up. Hesitation, anxiety, fear, heaviness, trauma, whatever it may be that causes that momentary hesitation. If you don't physically move within 5 seconds of that moment of hesitation, the subconscious part of your brain takes over.
To physically move.
You got to physically move. And so there's this window, this 5-second window. Psychologists call this the difference between a bias toward thinking versus a bias toward action. And many of us, especially if we're analytical or we're introverted or we struggle with anxiety or ADHD or depression or a whole trauma, we have a bias towards stopping to think and consider what to do versus doing what we need to do. And I'm talking about these windows of time where you're sitting in a meeting at work. You have an idea to share.
Yeah. And you don't say it.
Correct. And you wonder why you're getting passed over at work. You wonder why you're not getting promoted. It's because you're not visible. And it comes down to these moments. Same thing at home. There's things you want to say. There's hard conversations to have. Or what about exercise? The hardest part is getting out the door.
As my mother used to say, the minute I get the urge to exercise, I lie down till it goes away.
Yes. Yes. Well, you don't even have to lie down because it goes away if you don't move within 5 seconds.
She was an expert at that.
Yeah. And so, how you use it is in these moments, or like addiction. It's profoundly effective with addiction because you feel yourself drawn towards something. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, count backwards, physically move away from the thing.
So you just literally just say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then get your body up and go to the other room.
And here's the cool trick.
You don't have to do jumping jacks or stand on your head or anything.
No. Here's the cool trick. Counting backwards is an action.
Yeah.
So it's like a Trojan horse, because let's face it, putting down the alcohol is difficult. It feels hard. You don't want to. You have this neurochemical draw to it. When you start counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you've actually made a decision not to do it. So the counting is like the first domino that falls, and then you turn. And now you're moving in a different direction. And so the 5-second rule became a tool that I used to push myself through the feelings and anxiety and depression and sadness and anger and grief and all the bullshit feelings that are very real.
Yeah.
That dictate what you do.
Well, you were in a really tough situation, and it's understandable why you felt how you felt.
Yes.
And you could choose one of two things, either to just go back to bed and not deal with it, or wake up and deal with it.
Yeah. But we make 30,000 decisions a day, and the vast majority of them we make with our subconscious. And if you want to become a different person, you have to make intentional decisions that are aligned with the kind of person that you want to become. If you want to follow all of Dr. Hyman's advice, you have to make different decisions. And so counting backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool that you can use to activate the part of the brain that you need to consciously make different decisions. And there's even more involved here because, there's this famous researcher, Dr. Judith Willis out at UCLA.
Yeah.
And she has studied the impact that the nervous system has on decision making. And what she has discovered is that when your fight or flight sympathetic nervous system is activated, so in situations where you're procrastinating, that's a fight or flight nervous system, because procrastination is a freeze.
Yeah.
Alert.
Freeze, right.
Yeah.
Fight or flight.
And freeze.
Freeze.
Yes.
Right.
And anxiety or nerves or nervousness or depression, if you're in any, or just even worrying and overthinking, your sympathetic nervous system is now flipped on. Your prefrontal cortex, according to the research at UCLA, Dr. Judith Willis, your prefrontal cortex does not function in its full capacity when your alarm state is triggered.
No, it can't.
No, it can't.
Yeah.
And so
there's often a disconnect between the limbic system, which is the reptile lizard brain stress response, and the frontal plane, which is the adult in the room. And so you see why this person's an adult, but why are they acting like a lizard?
Yes. Yes. And so when you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the decision to count backwards is a moment of taking control. And the counting itself is what activates the prefrontal cortex so that you make the choice to go walk outside, so that you then lower your nervous system stress, and then you could come back to what you need to do. And so it's profoundly effective with addiction, with suicidal ideation, with procrastination, with making more money. Because you're not going to make more money if you're not willing to make the sales calls. You can sit there and think about making them all damn day long. And so it's changed the lives of millions of people. It's just, and I love it because it's free. Anybody at any age can use it. Anybody in any language. Just don't count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't work.
You have to count down.
You have to, because we have been taught to count up since we were little. So the act of counting up already happens in your subconscious.
Yeah.
Counting backwards in the beginning, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You have to think about it.
Correct.
Yeah.
The more you use it, you are encoding a habit of taking action, a habit of courage, a habit of confidence, a habit of betting on yourself. And so it becomes innate.
I know there's a few things we want to talk about today. And I wanted to start off with this idea that you've always talked about how you learned about things the hard way. There were always challenges. And even now, when we talk offline, we shared that even last week, we were talking about challenges we were both going through in building this opportunity to serve others. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the hardest thing you're working on right now? What's the most challenging thing you're working on internally or externally? Could be creatively, it could be habit-wise. What is something that you're struggling with or grappling with that you're working through?
Happiness.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, happiness. It's interesting. I was getting ready to come over here this morning. And so my daughter goes to school here at the Thornton School for Music. She's a senior, and she spent the night with me last night. I'm going to tell you the story because it's relevant about both learning things the hard way and about happiness. So she slept in my bed with me last night, and it was so awesome. And I just love her, and she's 22, and she's about to burst into the next chapter of her life. It is so exciting. And I miss her terribly, terribly. And I'm going to get totally choked up when I think about it, because I live on the other side of the country. And I think one of the hardest things that you have to do in life, if you really love somebody, is to encourage them to leave, to encourage them to grow. Woo! And I can't believe how choked up I'm getting about this, because I mean, this just happened this morning, and I was laying in bed, and she's sound asleep, you know, like sprawled out, like most 22-year-old sleep, and sweating, and, you know, just like this. And I thought, oh, I want to take a picture of this moment. And then I thought, no, she's going to kill me because she looks terrible. And you know how that rolls when you're 20 years old. And so I closed my eyes to just capture the memory. And I thought, why is it that I am always gripping onto the thing that makes me unhappy? What is it about this campaign? I call it the campaign of misery. Like, instead of focusing on the fact that here I am, first of all, lucky enough to be in Los Angeles, to be able to have the means to go see her for Parents Weekend, that I have a relationship with her where she would want to come and just snuggle up and spend the night, that she is pursuing her passion and dream of being a singer-songwriter, that she is just killing it. She's happy. Why am I always defaulting to the loss?
Mm.
And so when I say that I'm working on happiness, what I've realized about myself, Jay, is that I have done a lot of things in life, but I've spent the vast majority of my life being so busy and keeping myself so busy as a means to outrun, I think, a deep-seated unhappiness.
Mm.
And that when the pandemic hit and I had to slow down and I had to truly say to myself, okay, you can't go anywhere. You cannot regulate your anxiety by running to Target. You can't catch a plane. You can't, it's you and you and yourself right now, Mel. And all the coping mechanisms that you used to have that distracted you from the fact that you're just not that happy.
Mm.
They're not there anymore. And unless I want to drink myself into the ground, which I don't, and numb it, or hit the vape pen or take a gut, unless I want to numb it, I got to deal with it. And so I've spent the last 2 years, and I continue to focus right now on the number one goal that I have, which is to learn how to be happy and content wherever I am. And so this morning is the perfect example of catching this profound sadness, which is part of the human experience. Deeply missing somebody is also about loving them, right? And noticing that I was going into the negative. And part of being content and being happy wherever I am is not trying to fix things. It's being okay with things. It's allowing the emotion to rise up and then noticing that there's a different way to feel. Mm-hmm. And so in that moment, I just am doing what I'm doing a lot of, which is just breathing through those deep moments where I'm like, why am I complaining about this? It's so stupid. Why am I obsessing about this thing tomorrow? And I'm not even here right now. And reframing things in a more positive way. And this might surprise people because I am a very positive person. I am a very optimistic person. But when I really slow down, my mind runs 1,000,000 miles an hour, and normally it's 15 steps ahead, which means I'm never content where I am. Mm. And so I've been doing a ton of work, in my nervous system, in my body. Instead of going right up here and trying to wrestle with my thoughts, I've been going down into here to just anchor in my body and slow things down and be physically where I am, where my feet are. And so then there was a second thing that happened. So again, I'm working on happiness. That's the thing I'm really working on. It's like a muscle, right? I'm in the bathroom and I am terrible at doing my hair. I know it looks really decent today, but normally I look like a frickin' labradoodle on a humid day. That's just me. I just have never figured out the hair situation. And so I finally said, that's it. I have got to figure out how to make my hair look halfway okay. I'm not even looking for amazing. I'm just looking for okay. And so I was watching YouTube. I'm learning the tutorials. I've got the right sprays. And so Kendall comes rolling in after she wakes up. And I am sitting there trying to curl my hair, right, with this big fat curl. And I'm terrible at it, Jay. And all of a sudden, I hit my freaking ear. And I'm like, oh! And I'm like, oh my God, I've just burned my ear. And Kendall casually goes, well, you got to learn somehow. And she walks out of the room. I think there is so much wisdom in that, because that is how you learn. That is how you learn how close to hold a curling iron to your ear. You burn yourself. And then your whole body absorbs the lesson, and you don't go that close to the fire next time.
Mm.
And I'm doing that dance with happiness and contentment. That when I feel the fire of discontent or friction or complaining or looking for what's wrong, I pull the curling iron a little away from the ear. And I go back into a safer, calmer place.
That was a beautiful answer. I didn't know what to expect when I asked that question. I really appreciate you, going that inward with it, because you could have gone a number of ways. I fully understand and empathize what you're saying, because my mom and my family do something similar. So, and I love my mom. I have a great relationship with my mom. She's amazing. And anything that's good about me is because of her. But every time I go back to London, the day I land, my family will say, well, you're only here for 21 days. I'm like, 21 days? Like, that's 3 weeks. Even if you added up all the hours weekly that you spend with time with someone, it probably won't account for 21 full days with full presence. And then a week will go and be like, oh, you've only got 14 days left. Or you've only got 7 days left. Or you're leaving today. And that mindset just keeps forcing you to think that day 21 is day one.
Right.
As in that day 21 days left is the same as 1 day left. Mm-hmm. And you're living all 21 days as there's only 1 day left. And I've taken time, and I've sat with my mom so many times to have that conversation with her. And I said, Mom, if you celebrate that we have 21 days and we're going to make the most of it, and we're going to create new memories and create new experiences, then you're going to be happier for these 21 days. And yes, you're going to miss me the same. It's not going to change that. And I'm going to miss you. So I have personal experience of that on the other end of it, with having that conversation with my mom, where she's really grown in understanding how that thought hasn't served her.
Right.
And she's so much happier for it now when I go back. So that I definitely identify with that. What you touched on at the end there, though, was really interesting to me. When you talk about happiness, it sounds like you believe you deserve it, and you sound like you believe it's yours for the taking. Like it's like it is a clear goal, direction, it's there.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened is, subconsciously or consciously, so many of us don't feel we deserve happiness, or we don't feel we're worthy of happiness. Or we actually think mediocrity is a safer place to live, because then we don't have our expectations being unmet. We don't have the fall of, I wanted this, but I got this.
Right.
And so I had a friend the other day who sent me a message, and he said, take a look at this. And it was all about how really we shouldn't strive for happiness. We should strive for mediocrity, because mediocrity is where most people will end up. So that was
that
the take.
sucks.
Literally, this is the message. So my friend messaged me. He goes, "What do you think of this?"
I think it sucks. That's what
right.
Mel Robbins
So-
thinks. I think it's the worst advice I've ever freaking heard. How about that? It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe, because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.